It's as cold as I think the Six Duchies would be, so what better day than to finally film my Should You Read for the realm of the Elderlings. If you're new to this series, it's where I talk about books in many series, but I've started this with the Stormlight Archives. I've done it for the Wheel of Time, so I've done it for a few of the big classic, everyone talks about them on BookTube series, and my goal is to help you decide, are these unwieldy, large things that cost a lot of money and your time worth it for you specifically? It doesn't really matter what I feel. I mean, I'm going to tell you how I feel because if you know our tastes align or don't align, maybe that's a good metric. But in general, I try and break it down for what readers are these really going to work for, what readers maybe should think about it a little bit, maybe do a taste test. That's the goal, and we're going to do it for The Realm of the Elderlings, which is 16 books and a novella, which is somehow longer than The Wheel of Time. I don't know if it's more words. I don't do that math, but it's more books than The Wheel of Time, I'm pretty sure, because Wheel of Time was 14 books and a prequel book, but if you've seen my video, you know my thoughts. And in Stormlight Archives, I have a video for the first 4 books, and I talk about that as a Cosmere fan. But this is another staple of BookTube. This is Robin Hobb. I started it in 2019, and I finished it end of 2023, and it was a journey. I started it on my own because one of my friends from college was like, I love this series, and I just got to meet her at a convention, and he was very jazzed about it. And I was like, okay, you're my friend. I like to read books that my friends like. That's what I do. That's also why I started The Wheel of Time. That's just who I am. It's I want to connect to the art that people in my life connect to because I think that's a great way to connect with people. And then as I joined BookTube, I started buddy reading it with people, and that just truly enhanced the experience for me. So I guess my first thing is if you can find a group of people to read this with, it's great for conversation. It's great when you get to parts that might not work for you, because I do think, in general, for most readers, there's going to be a part of this whole experience that isn't exactly your cup of tea. For the most part, it's a fairly consistent series, but there's going to be some character focus or some world building focus or some thematic focus that might not rub you the right way, and the buddy read makes it worth it because it doesn't matter because you're still unpacking it with people. All that to say is, what is the Realm of the Elderlings? If this is somehow your first time experiencing it, is through my channel. It's this series that was started in the 1990s by Robin Hobb. That is a pen name. I cannot remember her legal name, but she's been writing in the 90s, so one of those classic authors, and there are, I believe, 5 series in it and a novella. So unlike Stormlight and Wheel of Time, it's broken into series. There are 5 distinct series and a novella that you can read within any point. In this video, this first part, we're going to talk about just my review of the series. Then we'll talk about reading order. And at the end, I will rank what I think. What's my favorite, what's my least favorite, etc. And I'll try and put timestamps down below so you can skip around to the parts you care about most. But there are 5 series. 3 of them follow this character, Fitzchivalry Farseer. He is an icon in fantasy. People love to love him, love to hate him, everything in between. 3 trilogies are dedicated to him and his journey. And then there are 2 other series that are dedicated more to this other part of the world. And it's very important and it does some fun stuff, but are not as directly connected to Fitz. Okay, so what is the point, the project of The Realm of the Elderlings? I'm just speculating. I have not read author interviews. This is just me. I engaged with the art. This is what I think are things that it focuses on. So from a plot character perspective, it's about Fitz and his life for a large part of The Realm of the Elderlings. You follow him as a child, as a young man, and as an old man. Those are basically, very simply put, his 3 trilogies, how they're kind of chunked. So a large part of it is following his faults, his successes, his failures, his connections with people throughout the course of his life. Then we also have this focus on just having this sandbox of a world to explore themes that Robin Hobb wants to play with and character dynamics she wants to play with. She wants to look at generational trauma. She wants to look at corruptions in economic systems. She wants to look at a changing of a time point. This reminds me a lot of the Dandelion Dynasty. If you haven't read it, that is also a series that is focusing on this world, this land, that seems to be transitioning from one era to another. So from maybe a more lower, older, isolated technological space to things are becoming more globalized. We are learning new technology, maybe relearning old technology, and that is changing society. And we are looking at that kind of global perspectives through very tiny moments with different people. And I do think that's part of the whole Realm of the Elderlings world for her, is to explore a land that is very different from its mysterious past, but it's also in its own right transitioning into something new and following that through different characters and societies and cultures that you have within the Realm of the Elderlings. And you get to focus on that in the Fitz books, but also in the 2 other series, the Live Ship Traders and the Rainwild Chronicles. So I think that's like kind of the whole point of the Realm of the Elderlings. But what's nice is you could just also read any of these series, not all of them, just like in isolation. Like, I do know people exist who have picked up the Rainwild Chronicles in isolation and who haven't had a horrible time, but that would also be a choice. That said, though, you don't need to continue on in Realm of the Elderlings after you've read Rainwild if you're just like, I am content. Like, the way that these series are chunked is that within themselves, there is a beginning, middle, and end. Not always paced how you traditionally would think they would be. We'll get into that. But in general, it's not like one of my things with Wheel of Time is there were never any arc ending points to help me get through this very long series. That 14-book series kind of takes over the course of 2 to 3 years, I think, in World. And it's really hard to figure out, okay, did I finish an arc yet? I can't tell. Whereas here it's like, you have the arcs contained into these series, and it makes it really easy to be like, cool, I'm going to read something else for now, but I've read that trilogy, and in maybe 6 months or a year, I'll get back and I'll pick up the next one. I think that's a really nice chunking of it, and it worked really well for me and how I went into this. So, who is the series maybe for? And it's definitely, and I think I've started to learn to hate this idea, but I don't know how else to describe it, but a character-driven reader. First of all, I think most people are character-driven. I don't know anyone who consumes stories of any type who doesn't care about the people telling their story or being told the story about a person. But I guess what I will say, this is not for plot-driven people. Maybe that's easier to say, because there is plot. There are big climactic moments. There are things that people who like climactic fantasy moments and epic moments, they happen. That's not the point. It is definitely focusing more on character interactions, character development, the mess that is a person, and how a person deals with the baggage they've been given from generational trauma, or just family dynamics that are messed up, or just life is unfair. You're dealing with a character being put into this world, and you are going to follow them. Whether that is Fitz or any of the characters from Live Ship or Rainwild, that's going to be the focus. So if you are someone who's like, yeah, I don't mind if we meander as long as I love the characters, here you are. Similarly, if you read a Hobb book, in general, a consistent thing is her writing style. I think it kind of veers a little differently in terms of at least structure in Rainwild Chronicles, in my opinion. But in general, her prose is her prose. If they read well for you, if you like what she focuses on, you're going to have a good time. Reading it will be like butter for you. I think she has a very easy flow. I don't think it's particularly overly descriptive or purpley or flowery. I don't think it's too modern, so it takes away from, like, when you're in the Six Duchies, it feels very like a medieval castle. But it's also not so classic that I'm like, I don't know what these words mean or how this dialogue works, and like having to learn how to think like these characters. It's a really good middle ground. I think she's really good at setting up atmosphere. So if you read one of her books and you're like, yeah, I really like her writing style, you're generally going to have a good time, but that's, reader to reader. And let's see, if you like a fleshed out world. I'm going to talk in like just be aware what you get into in the series about world building later, but in general, this is a well lived in, fleshed out world. You can, like, right now today it's snowing outside while I'm filming. Like, yeah, I feel like I'm in the Six Duchies, which is a very cold, rocky place. And like, I just always feel like I need a sweater when I read those books. And then when we're in Live Ship or Rainwild, I'm like, it is humid, I am sweaty. Like, in general, you get why the systems are set up the way they are. You understand why you're in a certain setting. Nothing feels contrived. It all feels lived in and well thought out. So if you're someone who appreciates that, or at least doesn't want to be distracted by convenient world building, you'll be okay. Now, some slight issues that some readers, I think, should be warned about, because, not everything's everyone's cup of tea, is, again, we'll just start again. Plot-driven people, be wary. Be very wary. Plot does happen, but not in a way you have been trained to consume plot. I'm sure if someone was analyzing this, it maybe still follows a 3-act structure or anything like that. It is not paced in a way that you are prepared for. There are books within series that seem to just exist for 800 pages to set up the next book. Okay, that happens over and over again. You'll have a book where it's like, oh, this is so good, I can't put it down. And then the next book's kind of like, well, what are we doing? And why are we doing it? There's this weird cadence to her pacing that I don't think is bad. But I just think if you're someone who expects a certain cadence, if you like a certain, delineation of, okay, we've been with these characters for a while, they've been sitting, drinking coffee, chatting, whatever, I would like a thing to happen now, you're just going to be at the whim of the story. Now, I don't think it's particularly too indulgent. Sometimes when authors do this, I think it's very indulgent. Here, I think it works for the project she's focusing on. I just don't know if necessarily that's going to line up with a reader who's like, I don't know, really wants high epic fantasy moments all the time. That's just not what this series is going to deliver. It does have those moments, but they don't happen all the time, is basically what I would say. Also, I mentioned this world is well lived in. Truly, it's an amazing world. I feel satisfied with what I've gained from the world, but I love lore, personally. Big lore person. I love learning about why things happen. And this is one of your more classic 90s fantasies where we hear that in the far distant past, there was more magic, there was more stuff, but something happened, a cataclysm, something triggered a falling of the previous guard of society. And, you know, you spend the whole series kind of wanting answers to that, like what did happen? And you get some, but that's not the focus of the project. So I'm not going to say you don't get answers, but if that is the main reason you are here, I think you might be more disappointed than people who are here for the characters and for the project of watching this new world become its own thing. Because I think that's where the focus is. It's less on the past. Like, yes, the past does define our now, but it's more about, okay, we're learning about the past, but it's also incomplete data, and what are we doing with this incomplete data in the now that affects our personal lives, the situation of the plot in the moment, the government systems, the globalization. That's more what we're focused on, less on, yeah, well, how did that civilization fall? Which is so cool, like truly, but it's not the focus. It's never the focus. She will give it to you, but you can tell that you as a reader, if you're like me who likes more, are way more interested in it than she is, okay? Another thing is just, there are a lot of heavy topics handled in this series. And she chooses to go at them. And like all humans handling heavy topics, it's going to work really well for some readers and really poorly for others, because when you're handling things like generational trauma and some physical and emotional abuse that can be attached to that, it's going to really trigger some people and it's going to really resonate with others. And then other people are observing it maybe for the first time. Maybe they don't have a strong connection. And all of these people are going to take very different things away from how she chooses to execute it, because she is also a human with her own experiences. And sometimes it'll land super well, and other times you're going to be like, really, that was a choice. That was a choice. And that's why I think buddy reading this is so rewarding, because even in those moments where like that theme did not land for me, you can unpack it with people and still have your same opinion, but you can at least see that like she's doing what she wanted to do, which was spark conversation. At least that's my assumption. Again, haven't talked to her. But I assume you wouldn't want to tackle these heavy, dark, complicated human themes if you didn't want humans to react to the art and talk to each other about it and take away experiences from that. So with that in mind, there are going to be moments when you're just like, I don't know if that's what I would want the plot to be doing right now. I don't know if I agree with how this is going. And like, I had this experience with one of the series where I really didn't like something that happened at the end of my favorite series, which is Live Ship Trader. Spoiling, I guess, the end of my ranking, but if you've been on my channel, you know that I love the Live Ship Trader. It's right behind me. It's right behind me. I love the Live Ship Traders. But there's a thing that happens in the third book that I really did not like for a long time. But then I read Tawny Man, and I realized she didn't like it either. And she knew that when she was right. It's a very interesting experience because it's just interesting how she approaches it, but that does mean you are going to have moments probably where you're not going to always feel like things are comfortable. Like, I think some of her goals are to make you uncomfortable. And whether you agree with that is completely up to you. And I think what makes it fun to read this series is to be uncomfortable and decide, how do I feel about how this person approached this idea and topic? Do I agree? Do I disagree? I don't know. That's the whole point of art. It's what makes it a really interesting experience. The last thing I need to bring up, because 9 of these books follow this character, is Fitz. Fitz is a big point of contention in the series. I mentioned earlier, people love to love him, love to hate him, are everywhere in between. I found the hardest thing for me for a very long time, I think for 5 of the Fitz books, and there are 9 of them, was Fitz. I just didn't like following him. I was okay with him as a kid. I was like, fine, he's a kid. I didn't have a lot of emotions for him. I think I was the most neutral for Fitz in the first trilogy. Then I read Tawny Man, which is Fitz as a young man trying to parent, and I'm like, ooh, And again, I think it was one of those things where like, it gave me visceral reactions, and that was the point. And then by the end of that trilogy, I'm like, wait, I think I like Fitz now? Or at least I like following him now, if that makes sense. And then the last trilogy, I'm like, Fitz, I love following you, and you're still a mess. And he's still such a messy, unreliable narrator the entire time. There are some parts of his personality that'll never change, But gosh darn it, for me, watching this character's arc, I'm like, wow, what a journey, because I went from neutral to hate to love. And I think some people always stay in the love. I think some people really resonate with his flaws and his mess. But again, it's a first-person point of view story when you're in the Fitz books. And so how much you care, don't care, hate, love Fitz is really going to affect you. I will say your emotions will probably change or at least evolve in some way. But I think that can be a hard sell, especially because, like I said, 9 of these books are about him and they are not short. That is another thing. None of these books are very short. I think the first book, Assassin's Apprentice, is a normal length book. Even the Rainwild Chronicles, which are shorter, are still at least 400 pages. There's nothing less than 400 or 500 pages in the series, except for the novella, which by definition cannot be that long. So they're long books, and sometimes they land on cliffhangers, and you're just like, but why? But why? Why are we doing this? Okay, so those are my general thoughts, who this might work for, who this might not. And now my reading order, because I think this is also kind of like a recommendation for, I've tried Assassin's Apprentice, but it didn't really work for me. Should I try Live Ship? Can you read Live Ship first? These are questions, and many people on YouTube have answered this. So, in general, I'm a publication order person. Except for I think I read the novella in a different spot. But for the main books in the series, my instinct is always publication order, okay? But that said, and truly, it doesn't matter. You can read Live Ship first, you can read Farseer first. There is one thing that most people don't even recognize unless they're buddy reading with people, that you'll have an amazing Easter eggy, it's just an Easter egg moment, it's really not that big a deal, if you read Farseer and then Live Ship. Now, is that worth it if you're truly struggling through Farseer and you're just like, I don't even know? No, you should just, if you're struggling through Farseer, put it down, try Live Ship. You can go back to Farseer if you've decided at that point, yes, the project of the Realm of the Elderlings is a thing you want to consume. Because otherwise, plots, characters, big climactic moments, none of that matters for Live Ship Trader enjoyment, okay? Again, the thing that most of us who've read the whole series got from reading it in order was a really cool, no way, moment that has nothing to do with plot. Like, nothing. It's important for continuing. Like, those first 2 series you can flip-flop. You probably should read Tawny Man next and keep going that way. That said, my mother has only read Live Ship and Rainwild, and she is happy. So you can do what you want. There are no rules. There's no Realm of the Elderling police. No one's going to come for you. I just think that's a choice. But that's because Live Ship and Rainwild are basically same world, similar character overlap, although Rainwild is a whole new cast of characters. But chronological order is also publication order. So if you also care about in-world chronological orderness, that's what you should do. The thing that I did that was probably out of publication order is I read The Princess and the Piebald Prince right before Tawny Man. It was generally recommended, and I kind of wanted to just read a novella, and I really liked it. It's a really great novella. And it does help because Tawny Man focuses a lot on disputes between certain communities, and their origin for, the disputes are kind of talked about in this novella, which is referenced in the epigraphs. So if you don't read the novella, the epigraphs will carry you through. But first of all, I just really like the novella, and I think having that information helped my experience. But again, you can truly read that novella at any point. It is, I think, 500 years before this series. It does not matter. These are not characters you will meet again. It just gives you insight into the relationships between these groups of people in the 6 duchies and why there is animosity. It's one of those types of origin type larger than life stories, and it's really well done, and I thoroughly recommend and enjoy it. It's kind of her take on a dark fairy tale in my mind, and it's exquisitely done. Otherwise, like I said, don't read Fitz and the Fool first. I think this goes without saying. If you're going to focus on the Fitz books, you gotta read the Fitz books in order. If you skip Live Ship, you're a monster. You're an absolute monster. I'm just going to say it because it's so good. And I know there are people who love Fitz from the first series. They're like, oh, but I gotta go to the next Fitz one. Listen, Live Ship is really good. It's really good, and it deserves more love in the Realm of the Elderling fandom. It is wild to me that the first book in Tawny Man has more ratings than the Live Ship Traders. That's just wild. It's something. It's something. And Live Ship is so good in its own right. So those are my suggestions for the reading order, and we're going to do my ranking, and I'll pick my favorite book from each series as we go through the ranking, because I'm not ranking all 17 of these things. My least favorite, I've talked about this a lot, Rainwild Chronicles. I think it's too long. It's the most bloated. It's the least tight. And there are long books that meander. But this is meandering in repetition, which I really don't like. I should like it the most because it has the most lore drops. But I like the characters. I like the themes. I don't like the repetition. It wasn't great for me. It peaked at the first book, which was Dragon Keeper, where I got introduced to everyone, and I really liked that. But then just got bogged down in being too long, oddly, even though I don't even think it's the longest series. But for me, it's like, you didn't put in enough ideas for the length for me. Next one is Farseer, which is the one that is least fresh in my mind. My favorite is Royal Assassin. I don't think that's an unpopular opinion, but Assassin's Quest, or the last book in that series, because all the names are now getting jumbled in my head, is too long. And the first book, Assassin's Apprentice, he's too young. I don't like characters that young. It was very like, oh my god, I need you to grow up just a tiny bit. Royal Assassin was the sweet spot. He's a messy teen. It was a good time. Good political intrigue, really well paced. That one's my favorite there. Followed by Tawny Man, which was the hardest for me to get into. And I love Live Ship. So I'm off the high of Live Ship and Piebald Prince, which reminded me that, oh yeah, I love the Six Duchies. So I get into Tawny Man, and I truly don't love that trilogy until the third book, which is my favorite, Fool's Fate. So good. Fool's Fate is so good. There's just so much buildup. And that happens to me a lot in Robin Hobb sometimes. Is like the fifth series is like a lot of buildup. Like, I don't like Assassin's Apprentice, but I love Royal Assassin. This one, I thought I would like Golden Fool, because a lot of people did. Not really. Fool's Fate, especially since I'm an endings person. So good. Next, I'll put the novella here, Piebald Prince. Like I said, I love a good dark fairy tale. It's just really well done. It has a great narrative voice, has narrative framing, which I'm always a fan of. Yeah. Number 2, Fitz and the Fool, which is a fantastic kind of currently conclusion to the Realm of the Elderlings. There's been rumors that maybe we'll explore a character in future books, but this is a good resting point. It is a good ending point. And my favorite is the first book in that trilogy, Fool's Assassin. That book was one of my favorite reads of 2023. Like, truly so good. And then my favorite is Live Ship Traders. And I'm not picking a favorite book because they are all stellar. I used to have a least favorite, and now I don't even have a least favorite. I think they're all equal. I love them. I need special editions of them that are not Subterranean Press because that is too much money. I just want some nice hardbacks. That's what I say all the time. There are now the floppy paperbacks, which are looking nice. But I do have my US hardbacks, which I do like. They have some nice classic 90s art, which I find very enjoyable, very colorful, very whimsical. Live Ship Traders is by far my favorite because it focuses on the drama of family dynamics. This is the one where you get to explore the most characters. You are the least isolated. When you're in a Fitz book, you are with Fitz a lot. With this, you get to be with a whole host of characters, their messy flaws and dynamics. We are traveling the world. It is so fun. I have a blast with it. It reminds me of watching some of my favorite dramatic TV shows. It is paced perfectly for me. Each of these books are 900 pages, and I cannot put them down. I read Ship of Destiny in 4 days. It's a 900-page book. I am not a fast reader. I'm a consistent reader, but I'm not a fast reader, and I just could not put that down. This is the one that's going to have your most epic moments. Like, if you're someone who's like, I need epic fantasy moments, that's mostly going to be in Live Ship. It has the most focus on what is becoming of this globalized world and what changes are happening. And it's I wish she wrote in third-person point of view more. She is fantastic at it. Even the characters people love to hate, I think, are so well done. You will never see a better written bratty preteen. People don't like her, but she's great. She is a very well-written preteen, and I love that. You have the mysteries of the Rain Wilds, and so good. And it has I think one of the best balances of character focus, lore focus, plot pacing, thematic overtones. It's, for me, that's her masterpiece in the Realm of the Elderlings. And I say that, though, as someone who has not always loved Fitz. So I totally get it when people love the Fitz books more, because his whole journey, 9 books, man. 9 long, chunky books. It makes sense. So that is my Should You Read. Hopefully it's informative to some extent. If you have any other questions, feel free to answer down below. If you have any other recommendations or thoughts and feelings, spoiler-free, you can leave those down below. I like to leave these videos completely spoiler-free, so if I see any spoilers, I will just delete them. I am sorry. And if you want more in-depth conversations, you can find me over on the Discord. That is also always linked down below. If you want to leave an emoji to let me know you're here, leave a vote for the Live Ship Trader series. That sounds fun. Otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.